Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often reviewing rare and exotic whiskeys. I have three from a brand new or fairly brand new independent bottler from Germany for German whiskey called 16 States. Now, I thought of the film with Samuel L. Jackson, but they thought of the 16 federal states of Germany. So America has their 50, and Germany has 16 Bundesländer, 16 states. And so they called the exclusively German whiskey, independently bottled company a English name. So Tim B and Claudio are the main people involved in here. They're about 45 minutes away from where I live. And so I actually, in 2023, they brought out their first 4 bottlings, and I tried all of them at the beginning of 2024. There were a few that I kind of liked, 2 of them, and 2 that were very, very young. So the one distillery is from 2023 they had here. It's called Birkenhof, and it's Fading Hill. It was a German single malt. It was 7 years of age. That was interesting. There was from the Heinrich Habel Hillock distillery, where I actually give tastings and I help out and I represent their brand in Germany at different whiskey fairs. It was a 4-year-old first fill cream cherry butt with 58%. That has a lot of power in it. It's young and it's interesting, but it's not my favorite. And from number 9, there's a couple of videos online here from the number 9 distillery, German single malt. It was a first fill bourbon barrel. It was 8 years of age. It was 60.7%, but yet it was delicious. Most of the time, number 9 uses a lot of fortified wine finishes and so on, but that was great. And there was actually something from a brand new distillery over here. They've been making German spirits now for 6 generations, called Penninger. They're in Bavaria, and they actually brought out, and they just started making whiskey 2020. And so they brought out a 3-year-old whiskey. And the interesting thing was they were not allowed to put the age on it, because in Europe, whiskey has to be at least 3 years of age, and it was therefore obvious that it was 3 years old because it was whiskey. And therefore, the basically the FDA of Germany says, no, it's illegal to put 3 years of age on a whiskey that's made in Germany. Talk about bureaucracy. I just flipped out when I heard that. I was like, you're kidding me. No, Jason, we're not. And it's true. And I think they even had to print the labels back then. Now we have a 4-year-old whiskey, and since it's not obvious that whiskey has to be 3 years old in Europe, they can put a 4-year-old age statement on there. And so the first bottling sold out. The second bottling is here. What I think is really interesting is they're going to do a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and at least a 6-year-old. So you're going to have 4 different bottles in 4 different years, and you're going to see how that whiskey has developed over the years. Always a first fill bourbon barrel, always a single cask, always at their 53%, which is not cask strength, but at least you can actually see that development of the whiskey, and I think that's great. So that's what we had already, and I did not do a video about it in German or in English because I just didn't want to push them. But I do have a German podcast, and the only German podcast. It's called Made in Germany, the Whiskey Podcast. DER is the in German, the masculine form of the. We have the masculine, the neutral, the feminine, then we have the accusative form and the dative form of and then we have the plural form. So I think we have 6 different ways to say the in German, but that's a whole different story there. All right, so I'm getting sidetracked. And so, but I did invite Claudio and Tim to be part of that podcast, and with my partner Mark, we interviewed them. We talked about whiskeys. That was great. That was wonderful. All right, so over here I have from Brigantia. So I did a where is the bottles over there? Yes, we did that vlogger bottle of Muscatel. I did we went October 2023 down to the distillery with about 20 influencers. We picked out the cask. The cask was then bottled a couple months later, and it's from the same company. This is actually the oldest bottle they've ever put out. Independently bottled, 11 years of age. It is cask strength. It is 57.6%. It's fully matured in one single cask, number 742. And it's a bourbon barrel, and The price is 109 euros. I think that's just a little bit too much. So we'll talk about that in a second. So let's pour this one with its 4 years of age. This is 11. The price over here is going to be 57.90, which is also for a 4-year-old, not cask strength, single barrel. A few euros too much, but still okay. And over here we have the black sheep of the family, because it's actually Stonewood, great distillery. If you there was 1 or 2 videos, I think at least one I did, where I was at the Festival of German Whiskies in May of this year, 2024. It was at that distillery, and there's a association. It's basically the SWA, Scotch Whisky Association. It's called the Verband Whisky Deutsche Whisky Brenner. So for the German whiskey producers, there's an association. And there this year, for their 3rd festival, they actually were here. And this is called WOAZ, Woods. And that is the Bavarian word for wheat. So the German word is Weizen. Maybe you've heard of Weizen beer. And the Bavarian pronunciation is Woods. So I don't like Bavarian. I'm sorry. I like people from Bavaria. I like Bavaria, but I do not like the language. It's very thick and very difficult sometimes to understand. And this is a German single wheat malt whiskey. And to be very honest, I dislike that. Why? Because there is no classification anywhere in the world that has single wheat malt whiskey in it. We have an American wheat whiskey, but we don't have single at all. So there is no classification for wheat whiskey in Scotland. There is no classification for wheat whiskey in Europe. And so when you start creating your own classifications for your own whiskey labels, I always get a little bit of a, really? All right. So this is the German single wheat malt whiskey. It is a mixture of malted barley and malted wheat. There's barley in here as well. So it is 7 years of age, and now it's getting really, really, even for us in Germany, a little bit complicated, because it's a virgin American oak cask. Now this oak cask is toasted but not charred. All right, so it's fully matured in this one cask, Q77-or/1. It's cask strength of 48.6%. You're like, what happened if it's 48.6% in cask strength? They have a lower barrel entry proof, which is great, just like in America with a lot of the new producers. Go to Peerless, go to New Riff, and so on. They're putting it in the barrel at 50-55% ABV. They put it in at 50. So we have 48.6%, which is cask strength. Now, the weird thing is there's 400 bottles from a single cask at cask strength. So if you do the math, you're getting actually a barrel, just the amount of liquid in the barrel, which is 280 liters. Now, most of us know a standard American barrel is 200 liters. So 53 gallons, 200 liters. You go up to a barrique, that's a typical French wine cask, 225. You go up to a hogshead, you have 250. I don't know anything that has like 300 liters. This was a 300 liter basically to get 400 bottles out of this at 0.7 liters at cask strength 48.6%. I know the owner. I'm going to actually send him a little voice message after I get done here and ask him, is that a labeling error, or is that, how did you do that? I don't know. All right, so this cost 74 euros. I think that's not cheap. Let's just say that. All right. So these two were released at the end of August. This was released in May for that festival at that distillery. 16 States actually had a stand there, and so yeah. So this has been here in March, May. There is no Whiskybase number for it still. Here I have Whiskybase numbers I can give you, which I think is a little weird and funny. The new ones have Whiskybase numbers, the old one don't. So Penninger is the number 259448, and our Brigantia is 257762. All right, so did I say anything wrong? No, it's 74 euros. That's here. 58 euros basically, and that's 99 euros, but 109 is the recommended retail price. I'm going to start with Penninger. it's a weird it's an interesting distillery, not weird. It's an interesting distillery down there in Bavaria. They've been now sixth generation, I think, if I got this right. I did a interview as well with the owner here on my podcast. They did a cask program there for most distilleries don't advertise cask programs over here, but they've been doing it now. And what they did at the very beginning is they brought over American bulk bourbon, and they bottled it under their name, Penninger, and they wrote the word whiskey, Whiskey. There's a big grizzly bear on that label. All right, so what they do is now they started, they sourced that. That was to get into some markets and so on. Now they have their own whiskey, which is 3.5 years of age now, getting up to 4. And they use exactly the same label, but they left off the E. Penninger Whiskey. Whiskey. And everyone in the world is supposed to understand that the one is sourced bourbon and the other one is single malt made in Germany just because we left off the E, even though we have the same bear on there. Every time I look at that label, I go, come on, guys. You can do better than that, all right? That's not what we want. I mean, that's really, so, yeah, okay. They call it Penninger whiskey. And here, oh, by the way, it says very small underneath there, Bavarian single malt now. They did, and this is interesting, Penninger made actually and he loves bourbon, he made a bourbon in Germany. So he used new charred 53-gallon American oak barrels, had a mash bill, predominantly 70-some% corn, rye, wheat, did everything the same thing. He can't even mention in his description of this whiskey the word bourbon for fear of being sued. So he called it Trode, Troad, Trode Bavarian whiskey. And Trode Bavarian whiskey actually just is translated from Bavarian and just basically means grain. Not even wheat, not even barley, just grain. All right, so Trode. I think, of course, of a toad, but Trode is what that is. All right. So, and they talk about here the Penninger Trode whiskey is made in Bavaria, absolutely in the style of the New World whiskey, made primarily from corn with a little bit of rye and malted barley. The extra long fermentation time of 6 days, the very skilled distillation and small batch processes gives you a mild but yet very nice and strong distillate. The Trode whiskey matures just like its cousins on the other side of the Atlantic in fresh, new casks from American white oak. These casks have a volume of 52 U.S. gallons and are, before the entering of the liquid, in an open flame. They're not actually charred. They're just heavily toasted. I didn't know that. And through this, Penninger Toad actually reaches very intensive aroma and a very good flavor and color profile in just a few years. It's interesting. I just can't translate on the fly the entire paragraph here, but the word bourbon is not used at all. So the cousins over there on the other side of the Atlantic in style of New World whiskey, and so I just love the way they're just totally afraid someone's going to sue them. All right, and so and I installed the fear of God in him with that as well. I told him, if you actually put bourbon any place, anywhere, you're going to hear from lawyers in America very quick, because this is very, very serious about that. Okay, so we have a single malt here from that same distillery, 4 years of age. I went off on a big tangent there. I'm sorry, but hey, digressing is part of my whiskey journey. I'm giving you facts and information about German whiskey you will not find anywhere else in the world in English. So, cheers. This is so typical of single malt whiskey. This could have been Irish single malt. This could have been a single malt from Scotland. You have the green apples, you have the pears, you have a little bit of vanilla sugar, you have a little bit of the barley, you have a little bit of wood. This is a very, very well-made whiskey. It's a tad on the young side with its 4 years. Even the heat is not the problem. I mean, 53%, perfectly balanced. Everything is there. I'm really looking forward to the 5 and the 6-year-old variations of this. I think they're going to be the pinnacle. And then if you let it even 7, 8 years, just like a bourbon, sometimes it get over oaked. This is great. This is very, very nice. I like this. This is it's not great. It's a C. It's a C whiskey, maybe a C plus on a good day, but it's a solid C. Single malt, single barrel, 58 euros, 57, 58 euros. I like that price. I really do. I'm going to give it a C as well. Compared 109, 75. Yes, they're older, but still, would I prefer it at 49? Of course. But hey, I can live with 58. All right. So the normal Bavarian single malt at the moment is 42 euros 90 for 0.7 liter. The Trode is going to be 44. I mean, that's great. Those are good prices for good German whiskey. Everyone else is charging 69, 79, 89. And sometimes they're only charging 59, but then you get a 0.5 liter bottle. You're paying the same anyways. So those are absolutely fair prices there by Penninger, I must admit, and I think that's good. Let's go over here to our second single malt, and that is from Brigantia. It's on Lake Constance in Krasbronn, down in the very south of Germany. This is aged 11 years. This is the first Fill Bourbon Barrel. They're doing a lot of things right. Now, they just put out 3 new whiskeys. One of them was a tequila cask. I don't like tequila cask finished products at all from anyone. Irish, Scotch, even American whiskeys or German. Tequila and whiskey just doesn't match for me. So, oh, by the way, why did they allow the SWA tequila casks? Almost all of the big people, Diageo, Bacardi, Campari, Gordon McPhee, here are William Brothers, William Grant and Son, and so on. They all own tequila producing facilities in Mexico, or most of them do, not all. And so they have all these barrels laying around. What is a tequila barrel? An old bourbon barrel. Bourbon barrels sent to Mexico, put tequila in them, mezcal, and then they can send the barrels over to Scotland and use them. Ta-da! But they had to change the laws. They had to change the Scotch Whisky Association SWA regulations, and they did. And that's why we're getting it more and more. And they did it. I didn't like it. They actually used something with Tabasco sauce or Habanero, these chili, sharp, these very hot peppers. Didn't like that either. But they have one, it's actually in the same box, a Universe box, and it was a rye cask finish. I asked them, I had to ask the master distiller which rye it was, but that was so good. I bought a bottle on the spot there. Rye and German whiskey, that goes together very, very well. Let's try this now. The oldest bottling ever from Brigantia. The name of the parent company, Brigantia, is their brand name, just like Booker belongs to Beam, Suntory, now it's Suntory Spirits Global. But so this actually belongs to a company called Steinhauser. So, and all the people belong to the Steinhauser family. So, and Brigantia is the name of the brand. So, on the nose, nice. Depth, a little bit of a raspberry moment. No, correction, cherry. Red dark cherries. It's not, this is the raspberry, this is the dark cherry moment. True cask strength. It doesn't bite, it doesn't burn, it's nice. It's got some wood character, it's got some of that depth, it's got the complexity. That's a C plus, maybe even B minus whiskey. That's very nice. That is good. Now, I'm not happy about the price at all. I think 109 is way too much. I did the math, all right? So you take 109 euros, you times it by 171 bottles. You're going to get, from one single cask, a revenue of 18,000 euros. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of here the VAT, which is 19%. So from the 18,000, I basically still have here 15,000 left. I get rid of the typical margin for resellers and wholesalers. So it's 30 and 30%, another 60% gone. I still have revenue after margins for a retailer, wholesaler, and paying VAT. Let's get rid of a little bit of excise tax as well here. I have still over 7,000 euros. I'm sorry, not 7,000. I have over, oh, I did it wrong. I have over 7,000 euros still of profit from one single cask. That's why I say this is too expensive. I will give it a C++, maybe B-, as a taste, but I'm going to mark this down to actually a D for value for money. This should cost, in my personal opinion, 79 euros. Now, it is on sale by one shop at the moment for 99 euros. The problem is their normal price for the normal products is 89 euros. So you can't go for a normal release, 89 euros. You can't go for a special release, 79 euros. You have to go up. And I just think most of the products here at this one distillery are overpriced. But all German whiskeys, almost all German whiskeys are overpriced. This isn't. And there's some other people doing whiskey, and it says, how can you? I just bought a whiskey from Czech Republic, 7 years old, for 22 euros. It's like, how can you put good whiskey out for 22 euros? Everyone else in Europe's charges 59, 69, 79, and you just charge 22. There was just the release of the figures. This tangent again, sorry, but there's just release of the figures. From there actually is 18% less Scotch whiskey sold in Germany than the year before. So they put out the first half of the year 2024 compared to the first half of 2023. There's 18% less, 11% less sales in the world of Scotch whiskey. And then I did a little bit of the math. They said we sold this many bottles for this amount of money. The average bottle price being exported from Scotland to the US is about 7 euros. The average price of the bottle being sent to Germany is 3 euros. And this is the ringer here. The average price of the bottle being sent to India is less than 1.5 euros per bottle, is the price that the Scotch whiskey industry is getting from their partners in those countries. And then I went online and it's like, how much does it really cost to make whiskey? If I want to buy new make, what's the price? And grain whiskey in Scotland, €1.20. If I want to buy single malt, it's €4.20 per liter alcohol, not bottle, per 100% liter alcohol. So you take half of that, basically, you get what you're going to go there. And then people are charging €109 for the bottle. It's not production costs. Now, I know Scotland produces hundreds and hundreds of millions of liters of alcohol every year. Very big systems. I know they produce here hundreds and hundreds of barrels a year. They're not even doing 1,000 barrels a year. All right, so that's the difference. Okay, they're doing basically about a barrel a day if they're good, and that of course distorts that. But still, if you go for prices 10 times as much, so let's say instead of 4 euros, it's going to cost them 40 euros to make that, which I don't, even with labor costs, electricity, energy, and grain and bottles and so on, I still even think that's way too much. But still, there's too much margin in there. All right, so that's what I'm just trying to get at. So those go look up the figures, what new make actually cost, and what, if you take a look at the bottles, equivalent bottles exported from Scotland to the price of that value of those bottles, it was shocking. Especially when you go to the store and you go, oh, they want $80 for this, they want $100 for that, who's getting all the money? And then you hear of all the different companies going bankrupt as well. It's like, wait a second, something's wrong here. All right, talking about the black sheep of this row of 16 states of the independent bottler, truly independent bottler from Germany, we have here Stonewood. We have 48.6%, and when I smell this, when I taste this, I get raspberry, but I get barnyard as well. And that really, really confuses me here. I get like a wet grain moment, wet. And I get a fruitiness. They use a yeast that is normally used for wheated beer production for this. So, is it the yeast making that wonderful raspberry moment? And is it the grain that might not be perfectly 100% great? I don't know. Let's try this as well. Cheers. Totally different. I love the raspberry moment, and I dislike the grain moment. There's wood, there's a good amount of wood going on here. There's a spiciness even actually to the wood. It's not the hotness of the liquid. This stands up to these. That's 48.6% cask strength. And it can stand up to the 57.6% here of that cask strength. That alcohol percentage, that concentration of the liquid here coming directly from the cask in the bottle is great. But the taste profile are different than expected. Just like the labeling is different from expected. German single wheat malt whiskey. Malted wheat, that's something I need to investigate more and find out more about. I've actually had their product. The standard was WOAZ. That is bottled at 43%, so they do add water to it. That has a price here of, so what's the normal price of that? That was going to be for the 0.7, we're talking about 68 euros. So if you can get this for 74 euros with more ABV, single cask, that's actually a decent, very, very decent price for that. Which means their other product is a little bit more expensive than I would be willing to pay for it. Yeah. I'm going to dilute it down to 43%. That's all it takes, from 48.6 down to 43. With that little bit in the glass. And it does smell more familiar. And what really, really bothers me is, the word bothers is difficult. They have the tasting notes for the normal product. It says here, spicy, malty, fresh wooden notes, and banana. I don't get banana. In the taste, they say it's powerful. They talk about roasted malt, vanilla, cinnamon, and mocha, like cappuccino, espresso, mocha. And then the finish is very long, very subtle smoke, and complex. There is a little bit of that so-called Rauchmalz, which is beech smoked or beech tree smoked barley in here. And that's a tiny little bit, and that's just, it gives it complexity, but it gives it also a little bit where Jason goes, oh, I wish they hadn't done that. Other people might not notice it. Other people might actually celebrate it, and I just kind of go, I wish I could try it without it. I'm not a big fan of smoked barley. That's my problem. I'm not a big fan of peated barley. But many, many people love it and give that a little bit more of that complexity and depth there. So, the winner of the day is definitely Brigantia. I like this, and this is going to be actually the third place. This is the weird child that's doing things differently, and yet there's going to be a big fan base of this that really, really like that as well. German whiskey is a little bit overpriced, but it's still actually in its infancy. As I said, 11 years old, the oldest bottle ever from the distillery. We are just starting to get some distilleries putting out 10-year-old product. There was a video online here about the Ellsburn distillery, and I had the question, how much should a 10-year-old whiskey cost? Because they brought out one that was basically the exclusive distillery only for $149, and the standard was $119. It's just like, that's too much. 10-year whiskey, I mean, Glenmorangie used to cost 28 euros, and then you have that for 128, basically. It's just like, I don't know. Something's wrong here. And so we're in that development stage of the distilleries that have been founded, have been started. Just think of anything outside of Kentucky as well that's been now doing whiskey for 10 years. So we have, I named Kentucky Distilleries Peerless. We have here Sagamore. We have here New Riff. We have here a lot of other distilleries that have just well, Balcones is older, so what were they? They're 15 years of age. So a lot of distilleries started in the last 15 years in America, that craft movement, and we're finally getting good stuff here. And it takes longer with our climate in Germany than in the States, than in Texas to make a good whiskey. All right, thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. I have no idea. Type in 16 states, one, no gaps, no nothing, .de for Deutschland. And maybe they would be willing to send things over to you, wherever you are. I don't know. You can also go to Instagram, find 16states.de there. And they're doing some very, very cool things, to be honest. And I'm looking forward to having more bottles on my table from independent bottlers, more independent German bottlers of German whiskey. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.